Cheers, everybody. This is Eric from GameShampoo.com. It is the week after E3, just closing up that week, and had some time to decompress on everything that's happened at E3 and all the previews I wrote and all the games that I saw and all the theater presentations and PR people. And it's about time to do a wrap-up. We already have some kind of like best of awards up for like graphics and genre stuff, but just on a bigger scale, just kind of talking about and breaking down some of the bigger games that were there, some of the bigger consoles that were there, what Microsoft has going on, Sony, Nintendo, and really kind of just shining a spotlight on some of that bigger stuff, because there are so many questions going into the end of the year. So I'm going to be doing a couple videos kind of relating to that stuff. Like I just said, I'll do a video for each of the major consoles and everything that's going on with them, and maybe some smaller ones relating to bigger third-party exclusives like Watch Dogs and Battlefield 4 and Call of Duty, maybe, or whatever. I don't know, we'll see. Alright, video number 2 is all about the Xbox One and Microsoft's booth. So, headed over there towards the middle or end of the first day and went back again on the third day and maybe a little on the second day too. It all kind of runs together at a certain point. I think I was in Microsoft's booth every day at some point, just kind of going in for one thing, coming out, doing other stuff, going back in for another thing, and or going upstairs to see whatever studios were doing for stuff upstairs in the meeting rooms. And I don't know, I still don't really feel like I have a great picture of why I would go out and buy that console. Which is not to say that it's bad necessarily, especially now that they've removed all the DRM nonsense that they had going at E3. Going into E3, there was this cloud hanging over everything of like, okay, they have Dead Rising 3. That looks like a cool game, but if I play Dead Rising 3, I have an internet-connected camera in my room staring at me all the time, and I can only play it when I'm online, and if I ever go to my friend's house, it has to check in like every hour or whatever nonsense, and I probably won't be able to buy it used and all this other ridiculous stuff. So now that they've gone back on that, I'm actually, my disposition towards the Xbox One is a lot sunnier. I was trying to keep everything balanced and fair when you're the only person that's checking out this stuff at E3. I mean, in the last video I talked about the PS4, and I did see a lot of stuff on the PS4 that looked really promising at E3, but like even with all the crazy DRM nonsense, I do think Dead Rising 3 looks really promising, and that is an Xbox One exclusive. And Quantum Break looks like it could be pretty interesting. Even with all that stuff, there's still interesting stuff, but now that all that stuff is gone, that stuff is a lot easier to recommend, right? So basically, when you go to the Xbox One this fall, if you go to the Xbox One, you're getting a new controller. It's different than the 360 controller that I'm gesturing to over there, as if you can actually see it. You're getting a handful of exclusive titles, and you're getting Call of Duty Ghosts DLC and Battlefield 4 DLC a little bit earlier than everybody else. One of those deals that can't really imagine impacts anybody's purchasing decision too much, but might be able to sway some of the more casual, like, I don't want to say like fratty kind of gamers, but like the more casual gamers that buy Madden and COD every year, and that's like all they play. Might be able to sway their decision, but I don't know. the thing with the Xbox One for me so far is that based on the time I've had with the controller, I don't think the controller is better than the current Xbox controller, than the 360 controller. And based on my time with the exclusives they have, I don't think any of them are actually worth purchasing an Xbox One, which costs $500 for, because and then you gotta buy a $60 game. And I just want to put out there, before all this goes too in depth, that the longest demo I had at the Microsoft area in E3 was probably I think it was 40 minutes, and that was Dead Rising 3. So I played 10 minutes of Ryse and probably 3 to 5 minutes of Forza 5. Just a track in that. So this is by no means a definitive analysis of all that stuff. We're going to have that analysis when the game launches, which is supposedly November 27th. GameShampoo.com/magazine. Check it out. We got news for you. But yeah, none of that stuff really just reached out and grabbed me while I was checking it out. So let's start with Ryse. I think that is probably the biggest game they showed off at E3, and at the start of their press conference, even I, sitting there, really, really against all this DRM stuff. I really don't like DRM, and I really value the ability to, use the stuff I buy in various ways, whatever way I want. But even I, sitting there in this giant theater with this cloud of DRM and all this crazy crap hanging over my head, watched the first 30 seconds to a minute of that Ryse gameplay demo they showed off, and was like, crap, I am buying an Xbox One, and I guess I'm just going to have this creepy camera thing staring at me all the time, and I guess I'm just going to have to live with DRM because this game looks incredible. Incredible first impression that game makes. Absolutely just mind-blowing. I mean, the guys at Crytek just really outdid themselves on the graphics. Even if all that stuff has to be taken with a grain of salt, because apparently all the Xbox One demos at Microsoft's E3 booth were not playing on Xbox One consoles. They were playing on PCs that were up to 3 times as powerful as an Xbox One. So keep that in mind. Those PCs had Titan graphics cards in them, supposedly. According to the pictures and according to eyewitness accounts and people who were breaking down the set and stuff like that. That stuff's floating around online. You can find, again, the full story, GameShampoo.com/magazine. Didn't mean to keep pimping that out, but for real, check it. Even if that stuff was running on a PC, it can't be too far from what we're going to see on Xbox One. If it is, then people are just going to, freak out on them, and they really can't afford to have that happen. But it just looked really great. We did disqualify it from the best graphics category because, if it wasn't running on an Xbox One, then technically I don't want to award it, because I don't know what the final thing might look like. But it looked really great. Just this big sense of scale. You're kind of in the water, Normandy style, and there's ships coming up next to you and just blowing up, people shooting ballista and catapults and stuff like that at them, taking them down. Had this really almost like Call of Duty in Rome sort of vibe to it, which I understand based on where the Call of Duty series has ended up, how a lot of people might hear that and go oh, that sounds terrible, but it looked really, really cool. And then you start playing the game, and the roots of that game as a Kinect title really instantly just hit you over the head, because it's basically a 3-button game. The developer there, or one of them, said alright, this, after his big spiel, this is badass, amazing, people killed your family, now you're gonna go destroy them, and you're leading this army, and you're a badass, and whatever. Said badass 7 times. After that whole spiel, he said, well, we want this to be a game that you can play with one hand while you're drinking a beer with another hand. And maybe that's what you want the game to be, but that is not what I want the game to be. I don't know if that's for the best with that game to make it into that game, because you have the A button, and that's your kind of like dodge-ish. Well, it's more like a parry. You hit the A button at the right time, and you'll parry with your shield, just like that. Hit the X button, like overhead kind of swing on a guy, and you hit the Y button, you push out with your shield. So basically, you combine X, like do like a basic 3-hit combo, like 1, 2, 3, and when people attack you, you hit A. I never needed to use the Y button thing. Maybe there's certain enemy types later on that you need to use that on. I don't know. And that's the entire game. Sometimes you hit LB. Sometimes it comes up with a prompt that says hit LB, and then you hit LB, and it makes like your soldiers do something like form up in a phalanx to protect you from arrows, or they'll like shoot arrows at guys that you're fighting when they get up into this tower. But that's not something that you control. That's not like an organic experience. That's like a scripted thing. Like, okay, you reached this point, so now we're gonna let you hit LB to do something. So it's very, very clear that this was a game made for you standing up, going like like that over and over again. And if it wasn't clear enough, there's tangible delay between when you hit a button and when he does something on the screen. It almost feels like you're playing the Kinect with a controller in your hand, which is probably like the most weird backhanded compliment I can give to a game, because Kinect games don't feel good unless they're really well calibrated for the lag, and they're not really precise. This game just feels really slow. It got repetitive within 5 minutes. Somebody just got shot outside or something. Sounded like they were setting off fireworks out there or something. But yeah, it's just really repetitive, and it looks really nice, yeah, but like I came away from that not feeling like I needed to play any more of it. I am curious to see if maybe it gets deeper at some point. So I do kind of want to play more of it, and I'm also curious to see more of that visual spectacle, because that first 30 seconds, like I said, was absolutely stunning. Even if that's not quite the fidelity of the final game, just the spectacle of everything was really, really great. But I don't know about that one. I really don't. It could end up getting more complex and surprising me and being pretty great. I will definitely be covering it in more depth as we lead up to its release, and then as it releases. But right now I'm kind of iffy on that one, and it's kind of a bummer. Dead Rising 3, on the other hand, I'm pretty much sold on that one. I like the first 2 games. They're removing the time element from this one, so you no longer have like 3 days to go and do your thing. And I'm not sure if that means there will be like these lists of like crazy secret endings and whatever like there were before, because all that stuff was kind of based on timing and getting extra days, like going up to I think like 7 days, I'm pretty sure it was, if you got the real true ending. I'm not sure if that stuff will be in play at all in Dead Rising 3, which may be kind of disappointing if there aren't any like weird secret endings. They did say the game is trying to take itself a little more seriously, which again is not something that I want at all. Like, Dead Rising 3 is supposed to be this weird, not serious, goofy, stupid, ridiculous crap. But luckily, they still put on like a karate gi and took out this sword and doused it in kerosene and lit it on fire, and then they were shooting like waves of fire out of their sword at all these zombies. So if they're trying to make it more serious, I don't really think they're succeeding that well. So that was good news for me. It still looks goofy enough to be fun. Looks really impressive visually. There's just so many zombies on the screen at any one time. There must have been at least 500 on screen at this one point when he climbed up onto a roof and was overlooking I had like a nice view of the city beneath him, and the streets were just full of zombies. Um, yeah, otherwise, it looks like more of what made Dead Rising really cool. You can now craft weapons not just at benches, but wherever you want. If you get proficient enough with a weapon, I think it was if you get proficient enough with it, and like level it up, or maybe it's you level yourself up. I don't. Yeah, it's you level yourself up, and then you can drop points into this sort of super basic skill tree, and one of the kind of like branches in the tree that you can drop points into is being able to craft weapons without having the necessary components. So you can craft certain types of weapons without even having the required items to craft them. And that sounds like it kind of streamlines a lot of the weapon crafting stuff, which was one of the best parts of 2, but also was kind of needlessly restrictive to have to go out and grab everything and then run off to a bench somewhere. That feels like a huge improvement, and it seemed to really improve the pacing of the game. I don't really know a ton else to say about that game. Zombies will come in multiple types. There were firefighter zombies that were harder to kill than normal zombies because they had hard hats and these like thick clothes on and stuff. There's smart glass integration, which allows you to call in airstrikes, and they also called in like a VTOL, I think, to provide gunner support, kind of like the chopper gunner perk in Call of Duty. And I thought that stuff was pretty dumb. I don't want to be calling in airstrikes in Dead Rising. I want to be killing zombies with a sledgehammer with a chainsaw sticking off the end, which is also still an option. Good news about smart glass being that it's optional stuff, so I probably won't engage in that stuff much aside from whatever's required to do a review if I review the game. If you like Dead Rising, I see no reason why Dead Rising 3 shouldn't be on your list, unless of course you're not getting an Xbox One. It's not this kind of like mind-blowing title that I would say like, oh, okay, yeah, go out there and pick up an Xbox One. Like, like if you don't play on PC with the PS4, you've got Transistor, which looks incredible. You've got Outlast, which is looking really promising if you like horror games. And you've got Killzone if you like shooters. I don't know what is going on out there. Killzone if you like shooters, or Infamous looks like a really, really solid game. I'm not sure if Dead Rising 3 looks like it's up to the level of something like Transistor, but for me, it is by far the best thing that the Xbox One has going for it right now. And based on my presentation and the presentations of everything else that I saw and played, it would be my number one recommendation if you're planning on getting an Xbox One this holiday. I think it looks pretty cool. And then there's Forza 5, and I really don't know what to say about Forza other than the fact that it's a Forza game, very clearly. I played 3 for like 10 minutes. I played a good chunk of 4. Thought Forza 4 was quite a good game. Forza 5 will probably be quite a good racing game if that's what you're into. It's just that, it's just that. It's a Forza game. It's nothing crazy like Forza Horizon was last year. Now we see why they put that out, so they can give the main team the extra time to make this jump. It looks pretty nice. It doesn't look, like mind-blowingly nice or anything. It's not like this huge, incredible step up over 4 or anything like that. It's just a decent looking racing game that plays pretty solidly. They're talking about bringing in, human behaviors and the AI and learning from the way that other people play Forza games. And that immediately makes me think of the online races in Forza 4 and 3, where people are just running each other off the road and everybody's screaming like, that's not how you're supposed to play the game. It's not how you're supposed to do it. God, like I find it hilarious to picture AI now like running you off the road like a bunch of jackasses. Hopefully that's not how it works. They haven't gone into too much detail about how it actually will work. So, but yeah, Forza 5. It's a Forza game. Just hope you don't want anything else. So really quickly, before I finish off the Xbox segment, let's go into the controller, talk about that. Let's grab this Xbox controller. So, real quick, in comparison to the Xbox controller, you've got these very straight triggers on here. The triggers on the Xbox One controller actually slant down at the side, so it's instead of being like this kind of motion, it's like that kind of motion to push down on the trigger. They're wider and angled, and it's a little awkward, but I didn't have time to really determine if it's more comfortable than this in terms of just pushing the trigger or less comfortable. So that's probably the aspect of the controller that I'm most curious to play around with. The face buttons are much more binary, kind of like they have a little bit of a gelish sort of feel, I think, when you push them down on the 360 controller. And on the One controller, it's a bit more of a click. D-pad certainly is looking improved over this thing anyway. There's no twist and pop kind of deal like you get on some 360 controllers, which I actually like. And then there's the analog sticks, which are more or less the same. The thing that I don't like about the Xbox One controller so far is the way that it fits in your hand. This has a very ergonomic sort of feel, nice and curved, fits in your hand really well. The Xbox One kind of juts out a little bit awkwardly to the side. It's more angular, where this one is more curved. So your fingers kind of fit at an angle on the back of it, which is the direct opposite of the way that the PS4 controller felt, which gives you a nice curved, smooth back to really get your hand around. So the Xbox One controller, holding it was really weird. I didn't expect them to change that thing too much because that thing is awesome. But you've got these kind of strange triggers and this weird angular surface on your hands. So definitely have to do a side-by-side comparison when the Xbox One comes out later this year. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for Wii U videos and a whole bunch more. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for everything else we're going to do this year with the Xbox One, PS4, and the Wii U.